So in May, I took part in a cycle tour of Burundi, and so there were 10 or 12 of us from different countries, America and the UK mostly. Some of us were younger, some of us were older. A couple of guys were a bit nervous about it. And at first we had some trouble with our bicycles because there was a strike in Brussels, which meant that all of our bicycles were stuck there until the strike was resolved. Luckily, though, after some nervous days waiting and not knowing if we would be able to start at all, the bicycles arrived the night before we had to leave, so we put them together quickly and were able to set off on time. The first day was fantastically beautiful. I really wasn't expecting the palm trees, the glimmering azure Lake Tanganyika, the longest lake in the world, the smiling, laughing children, the clear skies, everything was just perfect. The second day was a real grind because we were going uphill basically the whole day. So especially Dave and Paul, who were the two older people in our team, were really kind of worried about how they were going to manage it, and there were some real anxious conversations the night before. In the event, it was actually fine. We just went up at our own pace, had plenty of water and bananas, lots of protein bars, took our time, and in the end we got to the hotel. Everybody was in one piece, pretty happy and comfortable, and had a good night's sleep. So on the third day we travelled from Rutana to Gitega, and this was what most of the country was like. It was very hilly, very beautiful, and everywhere we went, these children would flock to the side of the road to shout and laugh and to wave their hands at us. And we got at one point to a school, and so the teachers were obviously trying to bring the children in from the end of a break. And we arrived, which a team of white people in the middle of Burundi is strange enough anyway, but when they're all wearing lycra and cycling clothes and on bicycles, there's a complete revelation. It's just unheard of. So all the children ran, they streamed to the side of the road and were shouting at us. So we decided to stop, and a couple of people who live in Burundi, so speak a bit of Kirundi, the language, went up to the children and started saying, "Do you know what white people eat for breakfast?" And the children all kind of craning, slightly nervous and afraid, but really wanting to hear. And they let the moment draw out and let the kind of tension build. And then they shouted all at once, "We eat black children," and ran after the children while they shrieked with joy and fear and ran behind all of their teachers. Only for a few seconds though before they came out again to kind of see what was going to happen next. So the purpose of the trip was to raise money for the Gitega International Academy, which Simon and his charity have been instrumental in getting off the ground. The purpose of the academy is to raise up leaders for the next generation, people who will have virtues like leadership and integrity and excellence. So on the fourth day we travelled up from Gitega to Muyinga, which was also very hilly, lots of up and downs, and was in some ways, had the most dramatic accident that we saw. So somewhere on a hill in the middle of nowhere, this huge lorry had overturned, either run out of brakes or the driver had fallen asleep, and the whole thing had overturned halfway across the road, and it looked like it had been a while ago and nobody had been able to clear it up. So we kind of gingerly wove our way through the wreckage, hoping that nobody had been hurt, and went on our way. We saw a lot of people on bicycles, especially in the towns, because they use these very heavy-duty bicycles to transport all kinds of things, from live goats and chickens to meat, to grass and hay, to huge bags of flour and rice. And these people they cycle along surprisingly quickly, earning almost nothing for the huge work that they're doing. So on the fifth day we travelled from Muyinga to Kayanza along the northern border of Burundi, and this was one of the most beautiful days because we had some really long, winding descents down through some really high hills. The other thing that happened on the fifth day was Josh, who is one of the Americans who lives in Burundi with his wife Nadine. We stopped and some children gathered around us as always, in the middle of nowhere. Within 5 minutes of stopping, we would be surrounded by children. And there was one child in particular who was particularly assertive and really wanted to get up and sort of talk to us or just be with us. He was only about, I don't know, 4 years old maybe. And Josh had got some sweets out, some candies, and this boy was really excited about the candies. So he came up, and so Josh kind of eventually gave him one. And this kid, he was so happy. He didn't eat it at once. He held onto it really tight and started twirling around like some kind of diva, knowing that all the other kids would want one of this and that he was the one who had it. And then, of course, all the children were like, "Give me one, give me one, give me one." So Josh had to give out the rest of his sweets and ended. So on the sixth day, we went from Kayanza to Cibitoke, and this was the most dangerous stretch of the whole tour, because Burundi, although the civil war that ravaged it for decades is over, there are still some very lawless areas where many of the rebels retreated to and the government can't really get them. So we had an armed guard for this penultimate day, some soldiers in a pickup truck who drove behind us, which was supposed to make us feel better, but in reality made us feel quite a lot more nervous, because it made us think, well, who knows what's going to happen? Luckily, nothing happened, and we did the whole day without any problem. Burundi grows a lot of tea and quite a lot of coffee, and we had an amazing view of this on the sixth day as we went past this huge tea plantation and then several coffee plantations with people. In the tea plantation, there were people picking the leaves with these huge baskets on their back. It was just a fantastically beautiful and unusual sight. So the final day was the shortest day. It was from Cibitoke back to Bujumbura, the capital. And so because it wasn't going to be so difficult, we decided to organize a race. Now, so we had about 4 or 5 younger guys in the team. So most of the others weren't interested. So we lined up. We had again, we had an armed guard. So they were part of the kind of support team, the logistics, and so they set us off, and it was just about, I think, about 10 kilometers, so quite a short race. And so they set us off, and off we went. It was pretty close, and everyone had been taking bets on who was going to come out on top. So then we finished, we went along, and some of the roads were not so good on this last day, which was unusual because the whole rest of the time the roads had been perfect. They had been just beautiful, smooth, clear, empty of traffic, and on this day they were just a bit bumpier and a bit more rutted. So we made a bit more slow progress, and as we came into Bujumbura, we had this massive sense of excitement and completion, and there was a bus with people, or a kind of pickup truck with people welcoming us and cheering us on, taking photographs, so we really felt like heroes as we came into the finish. And they had arranged for this team of Burundian drummers, traditional drummers, to give us a performance. Now, Burundian drums are enormous. They're kind of this high and quite broad, and so they make a huge noise on them, all in perfect rhythm, dancing and shrieking, and then they lift them up and put them on their heads and play them on their heads while they start marching around and doing gymnastics, even like crouching down and doing all this kind of stuff. So finally the presentation finished, and we sat down to this enormous Burundian dinner, and then there were toasts and speeches, and where everybody said, "We're so glad that you've come and that you've been able to experience Burundi, and we hope that this will be the beginning of a long connection and relationship, and that we'll be able to have these cycle tours for many years to come." Burundi's had a really troubled history. The civil war that wrecked the country for decades has finished, though, and when Simon first came, he's been there for 10 years or so, he heard gunshots in the night in Bujumbura, the capital, and a lot of people that he knows have been killed over the years. But things are really different now. This is what we saw, and as we were cycling along, Simon would remark how when he had been to different places over the years, they used to be very different. And for example, when we were going through these crowded markets with people paying no attention to us, busy trading and buying and selling, he was saying 5 years ago, 10 years ago, these places were empty. People were afraid to be out here, but now they're not. They feel safe. So this trip has been an opportunity for me to meet some of the most inspirational people that I've ever met. Something about the ravages of the civil war in Burundi has really brought out some amazing people. I want to thank you for your interest in the trip, to encourage you to go yourself if you have the opportunity. There's going to be a Tour de Burundi, a next cycle tour in 2014, and if it's successful, as I'm sure it will be, then there'll probably be one in 2015 as well. So I really encourage you to go out there, because there's really nothing like seeing this country and these people for yourself.